life is messy and unpredictable.
Being able to find joy in the weeds of life is so important. I'm Beth.
And I'm Kim, and we are so glad you've joined us as we figure out how to hold joy in one hand and struggle in the other.
Welcome to Joy in the Weeds. All right, I am super excited today because we have one of my dearest friends of all time, Tristi, on with us. Welcome, Tristi.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, you guys.
So this is truly like when you get to have a conversation with one of your dearest friends, and we're just gonna have a conversation. But man, I'm telling you, Tristi and I met. Boy, Tristi, when was it? That was a long time ago now.
03. Fall of 03.
Wow. Because it was before you had children and now you have a teenager.
Yes.
Wow.
It's nuts. Anyway, we met in, like she said, in 03. And she was the youth leader for my daughter at the time, which, there's nothing more precious to a mom than someone who loves your kids. So thank you, Tristi, for that. But then Tristi and I started singing together with a couple friends of ours, and we did music together, and our husbands golfed together. And anyway, I just adore her. So I'm so excited to have her on here today.
Thank you.
So you've actually been talking about it for a long time, about having Tristi on. Yes, we've been waiting for this.
Oh,
so we're very excited.
Yeah.
Actually, what made me like get it done was that just a couple weeks ago we had Nitsa. Am I saying that right, Kim? On the podcast, and she does children's ministries, and she's the one. Anyway, it was the most remarkable story, Tristi. You're gonna have to go and listen to it. And she's moving to Boise. And so and she has the most amazing ministry that she's doing. And so I told her, well, I'm gonna get you connected with Tristi.
Yes.
And then I was like, Tristi, give her a call.
Yes.
It's time. So, Tristi, go ahead. We always like to let our guests introduce themselves. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, so our listeners get to know you a little bit.
Oh, well, I'm blessed to be here. I just think every day we get to wake up is another day we get to see what God has for us. I have 3 daughters. I'm a wife to a fireman. Which I always say he's my smoking hot fireman husband, because he is.
Now I know why you and Beth are friends.
I learned a lot about husbands from Beth. My husband and I got married and moved to Charlotte, and we were only 4 months married.
Oh, wow.
And so Beth and Chris showed us what it was like, and look, they're still at it. So I think it was good advice so far. Anyway, so my smoking hot husband, we live on an acre in really close to the capital city of Idaho, so Boise. We have 3 daughters. One is going into high school next year, Natalia. McKenna will start 5th grade, and Tessa just turned 7 on Friday. So we had a big party in the yard with the slip and slide and all the sprinklers and all the fun. And you can't get her too many Barbies. So she's in her heaven right now playing with it. I have a picture of them on my screen over here. So I'm just kind of looking at them. I was called into ministry from a very young age. I lived across the street from my home church. And when my family sort of became disinterested with attending, I went anyway. I just walked across the street. So I was about 10 when that happened, and just really believed, I just really believed that Jesus was my friend. And he showed up as my friend in so many areas of my life. I have not had it easy. There's been a lot of challenges. But when I went to college, I said, there's nothing else I'd rather study than Christian ministry, because it was just all that mattered to me. So I got a degree in Christian ministry, minor in psychology at Azusa Pacific University, and left there going, I'm an Adventist woman moving to Idaho. What kind of jobs are there in this field for me? And there really it wasn't realistic. But if someone would have told me that's not very realistic, I wouldn't have listened to them anyways, because it's just what I wanted. It's just who I was. And so, like Beth said, we were in Idaho, then we moved to Charlotte. That's where we met the Grissams, and did a bunch of ministry in church with youth and music. We did the same thing when we moved back to Idaho, when my husband got a firefighting job here in the town that I grew up in, which was just totally crazy. That's another story for another time. But have always just been involved in the church. So Vacation Bible School and, running programs and music and all of that stuff, all for free, all just because for the joy of the, just for the ministry. Love. I sat with a senior in high school, and we went through the whole Bible study to be baptized. And, I wasn't ordained or whatever, but I just was there in the tank with her, so she could get dunked and show everyone, who the Lord of her life was. And just the joy of all of that has been with my friend Jesus. And about 5 years ago, an opportunity opened up for me, which was just really random and crazy, but it was to co-host a morning show on our local Christian radio station. And it had been around for about 25 years. I remember it going on the air when I was about 10, when I would walk across the street.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I remember it. And it was a soundtrack to a lot of my life. And I thought, I was a mom, homeschooling 3 kids. The youngest was 2. And my smoking hot husband was working shifts, like 48-hour shifts. And he's saying, oh, yeah, it's 5 days a week, 5 to 10, Monday through Friday. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, there's just no way. And through another series of miracles, I started 5 years ago this month. And I'm still hanging out in the mornings with my co-host, Dave. And we host a morning show for the Boise area, really all of Southern Idaho and Eastern Oregon. And I'm on a couple of other stations intermittently. So I've just found a place where all of my experience from all of these different areas of my life kind of came together in a way that I would have never scripted for myself at all. So it's like living the dream. I love it.
That's so incredible. But so tell us about, because I know the story a little too well, but tell me or us about when they first called you, and what were your thoughts about that? Because it's not like you had history in radio.
Not at all. No. And I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it. Even just putting on headphones. I'm sure you guys know when you very first started podcasting, it was like, what is this? What is this? It is a different world. Right. And so I just had no context at all. But I was homeschooling. And one of the things that we always talked about was that you can learn anything. You just have to start at the beginning, and you have to start with what things are called. Like, this is a microphone. These are headphones. Like, this is what it's for, right? I mean, you talk about math, you talk about history. Like, this is what it is. There's a timeline, just all of those things. And so I was challenged by that to actually live out what I was teaching. And the manager of the station, who sort of started talking to me about it, I said, it just sounds like a scheduling nightmare for the reasons I mentioned before. 48 hours and I have a 2-year-old. This is crazy. I can't leave them at home and go into the radio station while my husband's at the fire station. We didn't have, family here to support that, or like a babysitter, like it just wasn't. And he said, the manager said to me, if it's something God's calling you to, he'll figure out the details. So all I need to know is if you're open to praying about it.
Those are always dangerous.
How can you say to a girl in Christian ministry, like, are you open to praying about it?
Yeah, right.
I mean, what am I going to say? No, not open to that. No, I said, of course, I'll pray about it. And then doors just started opening. It was crazy.
So what was the first door that had to open?
I was willing to go in and be in the studio. So, I mean, when you have 3 kids and they're your 100% every moment of the day responsibility, you've got to find somebody to watch them.
Right.
So it was just 1 week and it was like moving heaven and earth. And I thought there's just no way.
This was just like a trial thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I had to line all that up. But once I was in the studio, there was so much to learn and it was so exhilarating, like to learn something new. I had, kind of forgotten. It had been a while since I learned something new. And so it was really, I left there with so much energy. I mean, I'm a tired homeschooling mom, like with all this energy coming home and having all this passion and joy. And it was like, wait, this is weird. And then they, I don't know if they did it on purpose, but there was an artist that came in on the Thursday. So I was there for a whole week. An artist, Brandon Heath, came in on a Thursday and like was live in the studio. And he was just the nicest guy. He came in a hoodie and just a zip up hoodie and his guitar. And it took down all of the, like, you think these people are famous or something. You think they've got something, more than you do or whatever. And he just took down all the walls of what this was going to be like. It really felt like we were just hanging out with friends.
Wow.
And so I wasn't intimidated anymore. And even in the interview process, the manager was saying, one of the reasons to bring in a woman, a guy girl morning show is just to have so much more of a diverse way of looking at a subject. And so you talk about interviewing Brandon Heath and Dave's asking all these questions about the music. I'm like, I want to know what your wife is doing stuck at home with the 2 kids while you're here playing. Like, that's what I want to know.
Right.
And it was like, that's what our listeners want to know.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why we need you here.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it was pretty fun.
Wow. So where was I know it wasn't instantaneous that you just felt comfortable in that space.
No.
So what was that time like when you were really struggling, like struggling to learn and.
Yeah. Well, when everything kind of lined out, there was a lady at the church who had just kind of graduated all her kids off. And that was our miracle, was she said, I would love to come to your house with my Batman blanket and my pillow at 4:30 in the morning so that you can, on the days that your husband's working, so that you can go and follow this call of God on your life. And there was just no other reasons to say no. It was like it had opened. And so I kind of had to put I had to do it. I mean, all of my excuses were gone, why it wouldn't work. So I just had to go. And I just, my co-host Dave, he'll tell me sometimes, he's like, remember those days in the early days where you were like, the song was getting over and you were like, okay, what am I going to say now? And I'd like write it down, write down exactly what I was going to say. And then it would come on and you hear it and it's different in here and there's speakers in the room and you're trying to figure out your mic presence, how far away, how not to spit in it. That's what this is. This is a spit guard.
Right.
But you're trying to figure everything out. And then you're in this padded room with another person at 5 a.m. Like, it's not normal in any way. And so you have to acclimate to something that you're not used to at all. So they equipped me early on with a great talent coach that we meet with every 2 weeks. We put a lot of time in now that it's been almost 5 years. And then also a business coach that I would meet with about every month to 6 weeks. And the first thing he told me, I don't remember what it was, but he made me cry, like at our very first meeting. I think the question was, well, what if it is successful? And I wanted to think that I was going to fail. Everybody said I would fail because I didn't grow up in radio. I was being given this opportunity that people work so many years for to get to the morning show. I mean, you start in overnights, you start recording, then you might get a live shift in the midday. Then you work a drive time, when people are in the car driving home or driving to work. Those are like more fancy, whatever shifts. And so you work your way up. Well, I just like went straight to the top. Right. And so there was all this expectation from everybody in radio. And he just said, well, what if it's really good? Wow. And I just thought,
say all of their expectation, it was expectation that you would fail, not that you would succeed.
I mean, yeah, because it was just like, here you go, like drop you in the deep end and let's see, we'll give you about 90 days. And so the coach was just from the very beginning, like, we've got to do this. We've got to handle this, and it's just even in the way that you speak. I had spent some time in California and I said, there was one thing he heard me say. And I said, yeah, I'm sure. He's like, oh yeah, sure. Like totally, you've got to wipe that off of your, like the way you speak. And so I was going around with my kids, like, it's not sure, it's sure. You're sure. Are you sure about what you're saying? And I would say it over and over and over and over. I'm sure. So I can't even say that word now without thinking it through, right? Because the way you want to come across, I mean, from the very beginning, the way that you communicate is so important. And early on, I used a word. I'll just say the word was intentional. And our coach said, you just can't use that word. We are inviting people for the very first time to walk into a room and feel like they belong there. And when you use words that are a little bit more educated, or like you might have to look them up, it's like going to the fair and being like, this too much too short to go on the rides. And I had just walked into the fair the week before with my then 5-year-old. Every friend was tall enough except for her, and I stood there with her while she cried. And there was things like that were just divine. Where I had experienced that exact thing. And I said, I don't want anyone to feel like they don't belong here. Yeah. Like with me, I always want people to feel like they belong with me. They don't have to like reach any kind of, thing to be fancy. Like we're just hanging out. We're just people. And so if me practicing a word like that or not using a word like that, I had to learn the rules. And now that I know them, I feel very free inside of them to be able to express just a welcome to everyone who would tune in and listen.
Wow.
So can I go back to the success thing?
Yeah.
I've heard it said, and I don't know, that people are often more afraid of success than they are of failure. Did you experience that? So when the guy said, well, what if you succeed? Like do you remember what was going on inside of you? Like, what were you thinking, feeling?
There's so much that can mean. What does that mean? What kind of new dreams is God putting inside of you that you never knew? Because this thing that I'm doing right now is new. I never even thought of it. I didn't pursue it. I wasn't, I don't deserve it. So if I would succeed, then what about all those people who've worked their whole life? That wouldn't be fair. And so, just my heart for people and for like just including us all. I just thought, oh no, I don't know what that would be like. And I had to kind of switch it in my mind to, it's not success for success's sake. It's that I want to walk in my calling and in the place where God has me with the best that I can absolutely offer any single day. So like, if today God is giving me this morning show, I'm not necessarily going to have it tomorrow, but today I have it and he's calling me into it today. And for no other reason, success is out there somewhere. Like, this is me and my friend Jesus, and we are doing this thing, and I will do it with excellence. And I can't compare with these radio guys who've been around for 30 years in the industry, all these coaches, all my coworkers, who are so supportive, but like really, really good. I can't compare to them. So I'm going to show up. I'm going to have passion. I'm going to be the hardest worker in the room. And I continue to keep those same attitudes every day. 5 years in, where I could kind of probably sit back a little bit for the things that I've learned. But success is not defined.
We're not hearing you all of a sudden for some reason. It's like something got loose.
Awry. Nope, nothing.
Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah.
What on earth?
So success isn't what the world says success is. Success is that I wake up and do what God called me to do today.
So what I'm hearing then is success is not the outcome. Success is
the journey.
Doing the act. Yeah.
I think so, because God has equipped you with whatever it is. And I really believe that the Holy Spirit is about the work of drawing people to the Lord. And so if there's something that comes out of my mouth that would set somebody back, I believe that the Spirit can intercede on my behalf and kind of just take care of those things. So for a while, it just felt like the weight of the world was on. Like, what if I say something that'll mess somebody up? What if I? And I had to move past that and just really believe that God is in control, not me. So,
That is the hardest thing, because
it is really hard.
We think that it's up to us, and it's really not. Right. The only thing that God asks of us is faithfulness. And he does the rest. I was just watching on Sabbath morning, I was watching Elizabeth Talbot's new series on The Battle Belongs to God, that she talked about, Beth, when we did our podcast with her. And really that's what they were talking about, is like, okay, God's doing the work. All you got to do is step in the Jordan. Like, that's your job. Your job is to put your feet in the Jordan River, and God will do everything else. Your job is to walk forward into the Red Sea, because that was the first one. And God is going to part the waters. Not only is he going to part the waters, but the land is going to be dry. And not only is that going to happen for you all, but when the Egyptians come, then the ground is going to be muddy and the waters are going to. So it's all God. It's all God. All we have to do is just walk.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. That sounds like that was your experience.
It absolutely was. And of course, it got all muddy in my mind through the years, through the time, with the kids and all the stuff and what about this and that and the other thing. But at the end of the day, it is just showing up. It's just, it's showing up and being available. So what does that look like? For me, it just happened to be this. And, more things will probably come. I mean, when you guys started this journey together, it was like, well, okay, what are we doing? I don't know, but let's figure it out. And, here you are. I mean, you were faithfully executing the call that God has put on your life. And I think if any of us could get to the end of their life and say, I showed up every day and I pursued Jesus. I basked in him, in the love that he has for me. And out of that, I took action. And I moved forward, and I loved people in the way that he called me to do it today. So any of us can do that. You don't need a microphone to do that. That's something any of us can do.
Yeah.
So when you were 10, I've got the questions are going. Sorry, Beth. When you were 10, walking across the street with no family, like just you and your little self. Imagine you had your little Bible. I have this picture in my head now.
I do. Yeah. Precious Moments. It was a Precious Moments Bible. Yep.
What did you think your life was going to look like when you felt that call? And I guess I'm assuming that what happened when you were 10. What did you think? And then you took Christian ministry as your degree. What did you think life was going to look like?
I thought that I would be, kind of like a camp counselor. I did that. That's where I met my husband. So I kind of did that. I thought maybe I'd be a dean at a boarding academy or a Bible teacher. My Bible teachers were always very influential, spiritually for me. And I always just loved, that's why when I met Beth, I was, ministering to Anna, and she was, just on the cusp of middle school. And that age is it's just tough. And you just need people to love you. And I was alone in the world, aside from like alone in the church, I guess, aside from the people who came around me. And just, hey, what are you doing for lunch after? And we'll let your dad know, we'll drop you off. And that kind of stuff was just amazing. And I just thought I'd do that. Like whatever that looked like, I would love to be that for somebody else because of what a difference it made in my life. So I didn't really know what that would look like for a job or, I thought it would be cool to have a family, but my family's kind of jacked up and mom's here and dad's here and all the, it's like, ooh, I don't want that kind of a family, but
Right.
I don't really know what's possible. So yeah.
Wow.
So what was this process like for you and your smoking hot husband?
Well, that's a really good question because we get along most of the time. To know my husband, he's a paramedic. He shows up on scene. He is cool as a cucumber. He's in control. He's kind and patient and thoughtful. And I am passionate and fiery and reactive and like we're very opposite in some of those ways, but they complement each other. But there's definitely some challenges in that. And when this radio thing came up, I was ready to just move forward in faith. You got to put your feet in the Jordan, babe. You just got to put your feet in the Jordan. He's like, my baby's going to be alone in the morning without me or you. Like, I cannot see that happening. Yeah, but you just got to have faith. It's going to be fine. I got to know how this is going to go. And so we really battled it out on how you walk out your faith because different people walk out their faith differently. And in a marriage, especially when a big decision like that is coming down, we spent a very sleepless night. One night when it was like, we have to know in a couple of days, whatever we're going to tell the radio station. And it was Friday night. We were kind of hashing it out. And it was like, of course, you come into Sabbath rest and the devil's going to just sabotage something. And so it was a very restless night. Because I just thought you just gotta have faith and God will provide. And he just thought, well, God needs to provide so that I can have faith. And we walked into church the next morning, and that's when our sweet friend Laura said, I'm really, really struggling with empty nest. And I just heard that you guys might be needing some support. And I really would like to talk to you more about how I can support your family. I mean, I just bawled immediately, just bawled. And I said, have you talked to JD yet? And she said, no, I just, the sermon was just over. And so went over to him and, he didn't, I'm bawling. I'm like all emotional and he's super calm. And he's like, wow.
But isn't that cool the way God did that for him? Like you were ready to jump. Yeah. You were ready to put your, and God said, okay, she's ready. And I got her back. Yeah. So I'm going to help her husband come alongside by providing before he's ready to step. Right. And God is so cool that way. Yeah. He's so gracious and so kind and so good to us that he will meet us where we are.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not one is better or one is more faithful or one is any of that. Like it wasn't a competition. It was just like God saw them both and he was faithful. Yeah. Period.
Because that's who he is.
Yeah.
That's who he is.
That's right.
What do your kids think of you being on the radio, or do they care?
I don't think they really get it all. I mean, they were pretty little when I started. I think the oldest one is has always been a little bit more standoffish. She's more like her dad. She's a little more calm, a little bit more of a private person. So I don't tell a lot of stories about her. just kind of respect, where she's at with that. Like the other day, she was touring our high school campus, and that's where our radio station is on the campus of our Adventist academy. And so they were touring by the station, and she was getting ready to like hide because we're going by mom's work. And she said, "Oh, I was so glad that the principal didn't like point me out and said, 'Oh yeah, her mom does,' because I think she wants to be her own person."
Right.
She's 14 and a half. Like
Right.
she's going into high school next year. So
Right.
she's a little more standoffish. McKenna is my 10-year-old, and I think 5 years old was the first time she came to the studio on the morning show at her Christmas break. And she came in her flannel pajamas and her Jingle Bell bracelets, and she had her own headphones, and she was like up for recording, like, "Hey, it's McKenna, you've reached," whatever. She was up for all of it. She was just thinking it was the coolest thing.
A
And
little
so
bit more like her mother, maybe.
yeah, yeah. And then Tessa's my little one, and she, from a very, very little, she was only 2 when I started. So she's just kind of grown up with this is just what mom
Sure, that's
does. And I
normal.
think it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
But McKenna is McKenna Joe, and she calls herself MJ the DJ and makes her own playlist. So she's in for it. I mean, yeah, watch out world.
I think you're in for it. Wow.
Yeah.
What has it been like for you now that, things worked out for you to do this, but how has it been juggling being mom and this type of work?
Well, I think there's seasons for everything. It's the honeymoon phase of starting something new and learning it all. And it was just all that I did. And I had to give myself fully to the process because I had to go straight in and be good right away. It was a lot of pressure. I put more pressure on myself always. That's just always how I've been. So I was just laser focused. I continued to homeschool. I did that for 2 years before I entered into my therapist's office and said, "I just feel really stressed out." She said, "Well, tell me a little bit about it." And, just kind of bleh, like all this stuff. And she's like, yeah. So let's start at the beginning. And that's when I learned about a lot of things. But one of the things being doing the theme over the last 5 years is doing the thing that only you can do. It's what I keep coming back to. So when I get away from that, when I veer off onto a different path of like super mom, because she's doing it and she's doing it, and don't women do this? And if I come back to what is it that only you can do? I mean, God can put something in front of anyone that's kind of general, but he can put something in front of you that only you can do. And that is to be a wife to my husband. It's to be a mom to my 3 girls. It's to be a daughter to my mom and my dad that is in a nursing home, with kind of end stages, multiple sclerosis. It's to be a good friend to those he's put in my life. And it's to show up well at work. It's all of those things. It's not just one thing. And so I get really singular focused and have to come back to, okay, someone else can do that. And that's where I came to with homeschooling. I adore homeschooling. I am so I just think it's fantastic, and I loved it.
God bless you. In my house, somebody would have died.
Yeah.
It would probably have been me.
Yeah, I was close. And it was like, you know what? Somebody else can do this. Somebody who went to school to do this. Somebody who this is their passion. And of course, no one's going to be as passionate about my kids as I am.
Right.
But I can still do that. And someone else can teach them. So that it took a long time, because when you're in a community, I don't care what it is, there's this Kool-Aid everybody drinks, and it's like it has to be this certain way, or it's not the right way. And I had lovely women homeschooling moms. They were fantastic. Some of the best godly women in my life still. So it wasn't that they were well-intentioned. They were not, like, oh, this is the only, it wasn't in a bad way. It just was, okay, I've believed this for so long that to believe something different is just going to take me a minute. So it took me a minute. It took me 2 years to, to figure it out. And then when my little one was old enough to go to kindergarten, like full time all day, I was like, well, what am I doing? I'm done after the morning show. I mean, I could, take on like 40 hours and be done. When you start your day at 5, you can be done at 1 o'clock and, still have a few hours to run errands and then go get the kids at 3:30. And so I did that for the last year and a half. I kind of took an interest in promotions. It is just, how to promote your radio station, how to interact and engage your audience, not just on the radio, but also in real life. And I had so many ideas, and everything that I tried went well. And it was so invigorating and all of that. And it just kind of, again, like I veered off. I just veered off of that, like only you can do it thing. Until just week and a half ago was when I finally, like, it was, and now I'm just back just to the morning show and being able to then, refocus my time and energy again into my family. Because there are women that are breaking the glass ceiling and doing all these jobs. And there's single moms that don't have a choice, that, have to do all these things. And these were the voices in my head. And the truth is that that's not me. That's not the situation that God has placed me in. He's placed me in my family. He's placed me in our situation and has called me again to refocus into my family and my church and myself, as well as continue, serving on the morning show. So, and someone else can come in and do promotions, and they can, and that's okay. It's a weird transition time right now because it's just ending. And it's summer, so my kids are home all the time. And so it's not like I feel any kind of relief. I just feel like I get more time with them, but I'm still not napping like I should and getting enough rest and that. But I think all of us have things in our life that, when you're focusing on the one thing that you're trying to hone in on, everything else kind of has to take a back seat for a while until you kind of get a grip on that. At least that's been my experience. And then you get a grip on it and it becomes more of your natural rhythm. And then you kind of attack another thing. I mean, you can't just do everything at once. So I'd like to, but I don't do it very well. I try to do that. So
what for someone who's struggling, not quite sure what their calling is, you were there at one point. How do you handle those times when you're kind of in the, the waiting, like just not sure?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Beth, that's absolutely where we found each other. I mean, I don't, there's just a lot of waiting. Really? Like, isn't most of life waiting? I feel like the older I get, the more I'm like, man, there's so much more waiting than there is doing. And so when I met you in my early marriage, early 20s, I was really struggling with, why am I working 3 jobs? One of them being serving at Applebee's. I didn't this wasn't my plan. Like, what is this? And a dear friend of mine reminded me of the story of Joseph and how Joseph was just faithful. I mean, we've already talked about this today. Like, he was just faithful in wherever God had him. And the story. I mean, he had him from every which way, successful from the world's perspective to total non-successful, And so she just reminded me that there was a lot of waiting when he was in jail for a long time, was forgotten there, but God never forgot him. I mean, the Bible even says that. God did not forget him, and God doesn't forget us. And there's absolutely something, it seems so trite to say that, but there's something we're supposed to be learning right now. And it's hard. Like, learning isn't always fun. Generally, it isn't fun. And so when there's learning, like there has to be space to learn. If you're doing the thing, you're executing. And executing doesn't always happen at the same time as learning. Often, I mean, in radio at least, you execute we call it a break. The song ends, you talk about something, you promote something on the station, whatever. It ends, you play another song, you play the traffic, whatever. You execute, you're done. And then when we coach, we go back and we listen to what we've already executed, and we kind of take it apart and say, what can you learn from this? It's like, Monday morning after football, right? You watch Sunday Night Football, and then like all the guys are in the room, like taking notes and learning, watching the tape. And it's like, whether the tape has already happened or whether it's a tape that you're hoping to happen, there's always something to learn. And I think God will keep taking us back to the learning if we don't. My mom and I always say, like, oh, did we get it this time?
That's right.
So we don't have to go back and do it again, because God loves us so much. It's not our comfort that he's interested in.
Right.
It's our character.
Right.
And so I got a lot of work to do, and he's going to continue to put me in situations where my character will be developed. And that's, you have to be able to see that as love. And not as like, he's just like, about you. It's no, he loves me. I'm asking to be more like him. I think as Christ followers, that's the whole point, is to, just keep laying down who you are, what you think, the things that you're worried about, all of that, like lay it down and let him lead you. When we were singing together, Beth, we were sitting around talking one afternoon, like they want to put a name of our group like on a bulletin somewhere. And so I guess we have to like call ourselves something. And every single one of us in that season, and we were all in such different places in life, but the thing we agreed on was surrendered. And that's what we called our little music, group together, because that's what it's what we wanted to be. And we knew that that's when we were there, that was when God, could just show up in all of his glory and you use what we had.
I just had the craziest epiphany when you were talking about, I'm serious. It's like, oh my word, Jesus, thank you for telling me this, because you talked about how to have Jesus's character, right? We ask for Jesus's character, and it just dawned on me, we don't want Jesus's, I'm going to cry. We don't want Jesus's character so that we can be better. We want Jesus's character so that we can show others who he is, so that they can also be with him. Absolutely. It has nothing to do with us being perfect or better or improving or anything like that. And it has everything to do with the people around us.
Absolutely. Just get out of the way so Jesus can shine. Yeah. That's, obviously a word from the Lord. And that's how he moves. People say, well, how do you know? Well, that experience that you just had, that's a holy moment to be able to hear from the Lord like that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I know you really well. And I remember so well when you called me. I don't know what was going on, except that for some reason, it must have been kids. I don't know. But for whatever reason, I kept walking around in the guest bedroom. It's like the smallest room in the house. So I just remember that moment really well when you called and you were wrestling with, do I even try this or not? Because it seems like you also had another opportunity that someone was offering you, and so you were having to let go of one to do this other one that you didn't know if you would succeed at, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, we walked round and round and just talking through it. And I remember so clearly wanting so bad to basically say, Tristi, you're crazy. You're not going to fail at this because God has blessed you with every single gift you need for this position. Like, it was as clear as day because I know you so well. But I also know that those are things that you have to, like, it doesn't matter what somebody tells you, right? Like, you have to get to where you see that or experience that and know that. Yeah. And do you know that now?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I know that now, and I think that it's like been passed on because now it's my kids, and it's like I want you to see what I see. I want you to see what God has made. I want you to see like through my eyes or through his eyes, And so I can really relate to that, just like going the other direction now. But those two opportunities, you want to say big and small, right? Like there was one I knew I could execute. I had the education for it. I had always wanted to do it. I was so excited about it. And then there was this giant, huge unknown, like people would know me. And I'm always that person that's like, I'm going to win the lottery and then anonymously give all the money away. And no one's going to know where it came from. And I just want to be anonymous. I just want to love people and let Jesus shine. And I could not see how that would be possible if I was going to be on the radio and people would know me. I mean, people who I don't know would know me, and that anonymity would be gone. It was like a big thing. Whereas, like, if I was serving at a little church and loving on this group of teens, like, I get that. That's in my wheelhouse. I understand all of that. So it just was so much more comfortable. And those were the two options. And so I think that when he said, what if you do succeed? That's why it broke me, because I just couldn't, I couldn't reconcile those things. It had to be God. It had to be. And so I had to try. I had to try and know that, like, when me and God like see each other face to face, I can stand there and look him in the eyes and say, I did what I know you were calling me to do, because I don't want to live small. I don't want to underestimate what he can do. But you have to get outside of your own. It's not about your ego. It's not about what you can, like you just said. It's not, you don't build up and become more like Christ so that someone can say, oh, look how Christ-like they are.
Right.
No, you want to do that so you are out of the way.
Right.
And his light can shine so bright that all they can see is him.
Jesus. Yeah.
So how do you do that in anonymity and be on a radio show where people know your name? It just didn't make sense. And it kind of still doesn't, but it's like I had to just get over it.
It does, though, Tristi. And here's where I think the miracle sauce is, and that is just to be genuinely who you are, and to not, not to try to be something that you're not, but just be who you are. And you have always been so much that through and through. Like there's no, pretentiousness or, no, you're just Tristi.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's,
and people
they
need
say,
that, right?
I mean,
Like,
psychology, right? That was my minor. So that's, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Like the very top of that is self-actualization. And that is like becoming who you actually are yourself. That is like the top of what humans can be and what they can do. And when I first came into radio, somebody told me about Lisa Williams. Well, Lisa Williams is like the Michael Jordan of our format. She, and I'm like, well, what makes her so amazing? Is it her voice? Is it her delivery? Is it her content? Like all these things that you've got to be on point in order to connect with people. No, she knows who she is and she's not afraid to express it. And I thought, watch out, Michael Jordan, because I know who I am. I don't know if anybody else wants to hear from me, but I definitely know who I am.
Great.
So, and now I'm really good friends with Lisa. I'm going to a retreat that she's putting on in Colorado next month. And, she's not intimidating. She was this, person that somebody brought up. Then I met her and I'm like, she is close to Jesus. And she's encouraging me to be closer to Jesus. And okay. I mean, there's always something you can learn from somebody, in your field and that kind of stuff. But I wasn't intimidated at all. I wasn't in the moment when I very first met her. But then I thought, oh, yeah, we're like cut from the same fabric,
That's so good.
Yeah.
I think there's something about being close to Jesus, like when you talk about he's your friend.
Yeah.
I think that's when we know who we are.
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce, Beth, that really lets us know that who we are, and that allows us to just be who he made us to be. And that really is about being close to Jesus.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you would think, oh, these radio people, that's what they do. Or like you think about your pastor, oh, that's what they do. They're close to Jesus, and then they share that with you. And the truth is that you have to work at it just as much as everybody else does. There's not some kind of special anointing that just, like God from into here, and then it like goes out here. I realized fast that I had to be feasting on the word of God.
Yeah.
I realized fast that like whatever's in here stored up in your heart and in your mind, that is what comes out. And so if for no other reason, I got to be in the word. I mean, every day. I don't want to be coming in here and being an imposter in a place where I'm saying that I'm doing this, but I'm not. Because I can't, that's not me, right? I mean, it's just, you have to be who you are. So if there's a few days that go by, like, man, I've been struggling with this, but I'm getting back on, and here's a text that really helped me with that, or, whatever. And so, and I think for that was a lesson that I learned early on, was like getting outside of the box, because coming out of some postpartum depression with my second daughter, it was getting up early in the morning, sitting with the Lord, journaling out my thoughts and my prayers and my worries, and taking long runs where I wasn't sure I was going to come back because I was just that depressed. But just slowly, like, he pulled me into his love, right? And then that became enough. And it was those early morning moments that I just, like, I gave that up. You're not going to get up earlier than 4 a.m. Sorry. Like, I'm not that holy, I just, and like, it was such a sweet time. And I'm like, where is this? Like, where is this time? Like, with me and my bestie, I don't have this anymore. And I didn't think about that when I took the job. I didn't think like, oh, when am I going to do that now? When am I going to, and a friend suggested, one of those apps where they just read the Bible to you. And I'm like, isn't that cheating? Like, aren't you supposed to read it yourself and, like, write things down? And aren't you supposed to be in the actual word, like, underline stuff? Like, well, who's making the rules? Like, we somehow think there are rules for this stuff, and there are not. And so I just said, well, God, here I go. I mean, you place it in front of me, push the button, put it on my speaker, like going to work, and I'm soaking in the word of God. And it's like been 4.5 years. It was very fast into it that I was like, ooh, I need to be in the word. So, and now I've read the Bible over and over, but I haven't read it. I listened to it. Yeah. So don't be afraid to go outside of the box of what you think or what someone told you or what it's always been.
Right.
Like, it can be different. I mean, that's a really small example, but there's a lot of ways that our faith can be walked out that are not like somebody else's.
Right.
And that's okay, because a relationship is unique to you and the Lord.
Right. Right.
And that's all it is the relationship.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. It's not here's the 3 steps that you need to do to get close
formula.
to Jesus. It's like, it's not math.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it'd be easier, I think.
Well,
because
I
was going to say, it's amazing how many people try formulas and they really want formulas and they live for formulas. But
if those formulas work for them, they can have them. I am too right-brained for a math formula.
As long as the formula doesn't become more important than the person that you're trying to spend time with.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank God. So, all right. Well, Tristi, this has been amazing.
Oh,
I wish we could get, I cannot believe the other day when I was stalking you on Facebook, I was just, it wasn't that. It was when you were posting pictures about your daughter's birthday. And I was just thinking, how is it possible that I've never met your girls?
No.
Because you came out and we've spent time together, but I guess I did meet your eldest at camp meeting like forever ago, but she was tiny. Yeah. And now she's going to high school. That's unacceptable.
We moved from one church to another, and it kind of coincided with all these things going on in our town. And I was just really having a hard time like we were moving for our kids. And so I was having a really hard time with it. And one of the elders it was a little country church. I loved it. And one of the elders, I saw him and I said, I'm just really having a hard time. And he said to me, family's family. You're always going to be family. Family has to move sometimes. Family takes jobs and has to move around the country, whatever. But this is always home. And this is always family. And that's how I feel, Beth, with you and Chris. I mean,
I know.
it is crazy
too.
that we haven't, connected those children of ours, to you guys. And I know if we lived in the same town, you would be auntie and you would, have all of these, roles in their life. But I really, I've lost a lot of people in my life. I've moved around a lot and have some precious people that I just don't see or talk to. Beth, you're, one of those people. And it makes me long for heaven.
Yeah.
And I just know it's not meant to all be roses all the time. Like we long for something because that's how we're built. That's how we're wired.
Yeah.
God made us for that place, and we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so I try to take that, I don't know, it's almost like a pit in your stomach or like a little, disappointment or a longing or, like that. And I try to take that and say, that's because I love. It's because Jesus loves me and he's made a place for us. He's made a place where we don't have to say goodbye because of sickness or death or illness or moving or any of that. And there's a place where we'll never get enough time together, And so I remember when we left, it was like, if it never is like this again, this side of heaven, it'll be a sweet reunion. And that's something that I've always hung on to.
And you're absolutely right, that family is family. And there's no question. I feel that way about you for sure. And you're one of those beautiful people that anytime we get back together again, it's just as glorious.
Well, and I think, you guys obviously have that connection too. When you just can be who you are with someone else who is good with who they are, it's really easy because there's nothing in between you. There's nothing that you have to pretend about. There's little niceties that start and then you just go deep and you dive in. And that's a gift. I really think that.
When Kim and I first met, it took us like about 30 seconds.
Yes.
And we were just diving really deep. So.
And it's such a gift, when you guys continue to have this connection and you've brought other people into your connection, like you're sharing it with the world. And that is so powerful. And for anyone who thinks it's just easy to continue a podcast and to stay on target and to make deadlines and to, like track people down and wait for their meetings to get over. And it's crazy. You guys have, to have come along this long, you guys have really, you've been faithful. And so I pray all of God's blessing on what you've done because it lives forever. And then what he's going to give you to do in the future. Yeah.
So true. It's hilarious. All right. We always end this by asking, we all answer the same question. And that is, in the last 24 hours, what's something that's brought you joy, laughter, or a smile?
Do I go first?
Yes, ma'am.
If you know.
I do. We got all the girls moaning and groaning yesterday we have a huge shop that we just thought, oh, we're going to be so organized. And then we weren't. And so we were going to take everything out of it. And it's a big shop. So we're going to take everything out, reorganize it, and make room for a boat that we're going to go pick up tonight for our family.
How exciting.
And so I have this picture in my mind. I didn't take a picture, but I have this picture in my mind of all three girls and me and my husband going in, picking up stuff, turning around, dropping it on the lawn, going in, picking up stuff, turning around. And you know what? It's going to be the same when we're like boating and going around and picking up dad and skiing again and going around and picking up dad. I just had this visual of like
this loop.
Whether we're working or playing, these people are such a blessing in my life. And so it brought me joy to be cleaning out the shop together.
That's so exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Kim?
Okay, so it's a bit gray, and we have had lots of rain, and these two things are important because on days like that, the green is very green. Our grass is very, very green, and I live close to where they harvest like pine trees. And they did that in the spring. So there's all this underbrush that's now growing up, and it's very, very green. Well, as I was driving into town to go do my workout this morning, just along the ditch, there was one sunflower in this sea of green, and it was, of course, it's yellow, and it was just
Her
so
favorite color.
beautiful, and it was so vibrant against the backdrop of the green. And had it been a gray, had it been a sunny day, it would not have been as obvious. But that, just seeing that sunflower in the middle, all by itself, in the middle of all these weeds, just brought me so much joy.
That's awesome.
All right,
Cool.
Miss Beth, your turn.
Well, Chris and I we have spent the last 24 hours doing the lovely task of putting an offer on a house, condo, whatever, here in, well, it's actually technically in Flat Rock, but anyway, and that can be incredibly stressful, trying to figure out like what you're going to do and how much and whatnot. And then you go back and forth and all this kind of thing. And so we've been doing that. And last night we climbed into bed, and Chris always, like, he climbs in bed, his head hits the pillow, and he's gone. Like, just, it's that quick. He does always kiss me goodnight, but whatever. It's like, so quick. Well, anyway, last night he climbs in bed, and then he looks over at me and he says, I know this has been stressful, but just doing this, like, anything that we playing golf together, which we did yesterday, and then, doing all this negotiation and trying to figure out what it is we're going to buy and where we're going to buy and how much we're going to pay for it and why, and just figuring out all this stuff. He said, I just love doing it with you.
That's so neat.
Oh.
That brought me a lot of joy.
Yeah.
And a smile. So
yeah.
Anyway, so we're super, well, we've already had a verbal agreement on a house once since we've been here that then fell through. So we're not going to get all excited until we sign the documents and have the key.
That's right.
But we are possibly one step closer. So
Wonderful.
Anyway.
Very good.
Tristi, thank you so much.
Thank you
I know
very
you're
much.
so incredibly busy, and taking this whole hour with us has been absolutely wonderful. And I know it will be an encouragement to people that are out there, because, I think, in fact, just recently I was at the Called convention, which was for pastors in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I actually took a seminar on how your calling. I mean, I think all of us, over and over again, it's like, I used to think when I was young, it's it once, and then you find the perfect thing, and then you just do it. And I don't think that's the reality that most people live through. And so whether you're young and wondering and, trying to get it all figured out, or if you are 50 something and still try and figure out what you're going to be when you grow up, regardless of what it is, or just, in a change, or in a, questioning things, your story, I think, is going to be very encouraging for people that, are trying to figure out their calling on, for their lives. So thank you so much for being here with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. And
Sorry, go. We'll have him clip that out.
I just said, thank you for having me. I appreciate you both in the calling that God has put on your life, and we'll just go and keep doing what He's put in front of us.
Amen. So if you're in the middle of the weeds, go and find some joy, because there's a lot of it out there to be had. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We would really love to hear from you. So please find us. We're on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Joy in the Weeds. You can also email us. Our email address is joy@carolinasda.org. That's joy@carolinasda.org. Now, we hope that today, as you navigate the weeds, you will also hold on to moments of joy. This podcast is a production of the Carolina Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.